Alright, hello everybody. It's Lupa here, and I wanted to talk to you guys today for my Strength and Power presentation. Um, I chose chapter 10, which is over nutrition strategies for optimizing performance. I specifically focused on preserving lean mass during a calorie restriction because this topic really interests me. Alright, so my key question of focus, right? I wanted to find out what dieting strategies are the most effective for preserving lean mass during a calorie deficit, right? Also, I wanted to find out who is most at risk for losing lean mass during an energy deficit, right? And target population, right? I collected, I believe it was 8 articles for this literature review assignment, and most of them focused on athletes, and some of them included just like regular people. So of course, this video is gonna focus on fat loss, right? But more specifically, how do we maintain as much lean mass as possible during the fat loss phase? All right, so why do we want to preserve lean mass, right? So one of the main problems with a lot of diets is they don't have enough protein in them, right? Which leads to muscle loss, which in turn is going to lead to a lower metabolism, lower strength, and lower performance, which is all bad. So in terms of protein, right, we want to eat a high protein diet, right, during a fat loss phase. Combine that with resistance training, right? Because if you don't resistance train during a fat loss phase, you will lose muscle at a greater rate because your muscles will adapt to the stress you place on them, right? So if you do nothing all day long, then you're more likely to lose lean mass. And of course, if you don't eat high protein, right, then that further increases the risk of lean mass loss because muscle, of course, is made of proteins. It's just proteins. So the general recommendation is going to be 1.6 to 2.4 grams per kilogram per day of protein, right, per kilogram of body weight. Combine that with progressive overload, right, which is basically just saying in your training you want to make it a point to not stagnate. You want to make it a point to make sure you try and get stronger week to week if you can. So carbs, right? We've all heard the myth that carbs make you fat, right? It's just not true. What makes you fat is you overeating calories. So you need carbs especially during the fat loss phase, right? Carbs allow us to train hard, which in turn allows us to get a greater stimulus out of our training, right? So it's important because during a fat loss phase, some people run like 4-day splits, 5-day splits, upper lower, push pull legs, whatever, right? But one popular thing that's very common to do during a fat loss phase, right, is that during our training days we eat a higher intake of carbs in order to get the most out of our training, and during our rest days where all we do is cardio, pretty much we don't lift weights, then we can eat less carbs and focus more on fat and protein because our training is not going to be as intense because during weightlifting, right, we're mainly going to use carbs to preserve as much strength as possible, right? All right, fats. Yeah, you need fats no matter what. They are essential for hormone production and metabolic support, right? Now fats are going to be very filling at 9 calories per gram compared to just 4 of the protein, 4 in carb. The minimum intake, right, is 0.5 to 0.7 grams per kilogram of body weight, and this is in order to avoid certain hormone disruptions, right? Because if guys, both men and women actually, if they eat too little fat, right, then you're gonna have very bad things happen to you, right? So just when you eat fat, when I say fats, I want to make sure that it's, you want to go for healthier fats like avocados, fatty fish, and nuts. And like this big red thing says, I made a point here in the bottom. If fats drop extremely low, right, your hormones crash and you're going to have many negative side effects, right? It's going to be things like your resting metabolic rate is going to decrease. Your cortisol is going to be through the roof, right? Testosterone is going to drop, which in turn is going to lead to a further chance of losing lean mass during the energy deficit, right? All right, this is just practical hunger management advice, right? So you want to eat voluminous foods, and what I mean by that, I mean like things like lean protein, like chicken, egg whites, a lot of fiber, right? And this is because things like protein and fiber are very slow digesting, which means that you're gonna feel full for longer. and it's very hard to overconsume lean foods, right? And for example, uh, like 9 ounces of chicken breast is like what 300 calories and like 50ish grams of protein, and but that's a lot of food. 9 ounces of chicken, that's gonna take a while to eat, and it's only 300 calories, and it's gonna make you feel very full for a couple of hours at least. So yeah, that's probably one of the biggest takeaways. You want to eat foods that are high in protein every couple of hours to make sure that you feel full throughout the day, right? It's very important. And fiber, of course, is to slow your digestion and make you feel full for longer. All right, general deficit and training guidelines. So a safe weight loss is going to be 0.5 to 1% of your body weight per week, right? Um, so this is going to be like 500 to 1,000 calorie below your maintenance calories in order to lose weight, right? If you eat 500 below your maintenance calories, right, you're going to lose a pound of fat per week. If you eat 1,000 below your maintenance, you're going to lose 2 pounds of fat per week, right? And that's generally the cutoff, 2 pounds of weight loss per week. Anything more than that, you're going to be at a very much higher risk of lean mass loss. But yeah, I would stay in that like 1 pound per week to like make sure that you are only losing fat and very, very minimal muscle. All right, so training guidelines. These are non-negotiables. They must happen during your cutting phase. You must make it a point, right, to just try and get stronger every week, because the signal for muscle stimulus, right, for hypertrophy is going to be very quiet during the cutting phase. So you're going to have to take each set. You're going to have to make it a point to try and get stronger every week to make sure that you don't lose any lean mass. You have to make it a point. All right, high risk populations, right? Older adults, 50 or older, right? As we get older, muscle protein synthesis is going to be inhibited naturally, right? At a certain point, we get sarcopenia and we literally just lose muscle mass with age despite training. Of course, we can slow this down, right? If you're an older adult and you resistance train, we can slow this process of sarcopenia by a great deal if you just resistance train. Next up, we have natural female athletes, right? So main point here is that females are going to have lower testosterone than males. I believe the value is like most females have like 15 to 20 times less testosterone than males, right? And it's going to be very hard because of this fact, they're going to have testosterone is inherently an anabolic hormone, and if you have less of it, it's going to be harder to retain that lean mass during a calorie deficit. So one point that I want to make clear is that, or what I want to say is that for females, you probably only want to lose like 1 pound per week in order to preserve as much lean mass as possible. And guys too, of course, but guys, I think most guys can lose 2 pounds a week pretty easily and maintain most of their muscle. Research gaps. These are among the studies that I found. These were the big research gaps. One, long-term studies. Most of the data studies I found were 8 to 12 weeks long. Some of them were a few more months long, but of course, the longer the study, the better. If we had a multi-year long study, that'd be awesome. Gender differences, right? One thing I found is that, I think only one study had featured women in it. Most of the studies, right, are going to focus on males and male athletes. All right, so just takeaways, right? If I can say anything, these are going to be the main points, right? During a deficit, you want your weight loss rate to be moderate at 0.5 to 1% per week. Protein 1.6 to 2.4 grams per kilogram per day, right? Carbs is one thing that you can adjust based on your training needs, right? So you can play around with how much carbs you intake, right? So maybe on your training days you consume more, rest days you eat less. Fats, very important. You want to make sure that because they are calorically dense, you want to try and keep them below 0.5 grams per kilogram per day. At training, you want to make sure that, like I said before, make it a point to try and get stronger every week. Try that. And sustainability, right? How do you make this process as easy as possible? You want to eat a lot of voluminous foods, right? Time your meals, which will lead to greater adherence. And yeah, that was my presentation for Strength and Power. And thank you guys.